I see you found our little hiding spot in the universe. Don't get too comfortable. This is a place where you will find those with an experience that's out of this world, or possibly deep within your life. I welcome you to the Oracles with James Tyson. Lean forward and listen. We will pull you into a supernatural journey with guests from around the world, each one experiencing some of the most extraordinary phenomena this wee planet has to offer. Now, here are the Oracles with James Tyson.
Thank you, Liam, and thank you, listener, for tuning into today's episode of The Oracles with James Tyson. It's me, James. Today, I'm taking you down to Tucson, Arizona, one of my favorite places around the United States. A short skip and a jump to Tombstone, Arizona from there, and then up to Phoenix. And really, from Sedona to Tucson, it's just a couple-hour drive. It's not a big deal. And, well, okay, more than a couple of hours. You stop off for lunch in Phoenix. What the heck? Tucson's a great place. We're going to be talking to Becky Gydesen, who puts on the Tucson Ghost Tour. Now, it's about a 90-minute tour. And this was pre and hopefully post-apocalypse. So they're going to be starting up pretty soon. It starts about 7 o'clock at night. They hit up a number of locations in Tucson. And we're going to talk about one of my favorite places down there, Cocina Restaurant. And that's actually where they start off. And I know that place because I was down there visiting a few years ago and actually saw a ghost, a woman walking through that area. It's fascinating. I really liked that part of Tucson. It's kind of the older historic part of Tucson and a bunch of little artisan shops. And we're going to talk about her ghost tours out of there and her experience starting back when she was a kid in Toledo, Ohio, and living in an old haunted house from the 1890s. Tucson Ghost Tours isn't the only thing she and her husband will do. They actually run a thing called the Tucson Ghost Society. And the Tucson Ghost Society is a paranormal investigative group that she has with a couple of her friends, May and Raina, Debbie, and of course Will, her husband. And they've been out poking around people's houses by invitation for quite a while. And again, one of the things that draws me to Tucson Ghost Society team and Becky's team is that they emphasize you do never pay for a paranormal investigation if you have to have one and you've got a concern around your house. Those are kind of clues that they're the real deal. We talk a little bit about how she does her paranormal investigations. Of course, we talk about the tour itself. We go through some of the equipment she uses, and I kind of rib her a little bit about being an empath and being sensitive, because those are things she doesn't really buy into. But for we listeners, you the listener who knows who I am and knows a lot of the people we get on here, I probably wouldn't be calling her and asking for an interview if I didn't feel that way about her. So it's just not her time to flip that switch on yet. But you know, and I know, those gut feelings you get when you're out dealing with the dead and anything in the paranormal field, there's reasons for that. Becky is a wonderful person. She and Will, like I say, Tucson Ghost Society team, Tucson Ghost Tour in Tucson, Arizona. Let's go get Becky now. Becky, how are you today?
I am doing good. How are you?
I am well here in the Pacific Northwest, still dealing with the apocalypse, but things are starting to open gradually. I was in traffic today, and it was actually traffic again.
Yeah.
I really haven't missed that at all. It's like,
I think that's the one thing that people did not miss during all of this.
I've been telling people to get outside and just take a walk and breathe in this air, because it hasn't been this clear and fresh for about 100 years. It's been really, really nice to have air that's pretty well clean. There's not a lot of pollution going on. No planes flying over, no cars driving around, and bigger factories have been shut down. Even though one of our, I think three of our factories that are close to where I am, within about 10 minutes, are toilet paper manufacturers. So I think they've been working pretty well full time. But other than that, yeah, it was funny that when we had that rush on everyone buying toilet paper, I was thinking, dude, we have three of the largest manufacturers here in the world, and it's all being shipped to other parts of the world. So it was kind of funny. If we can all take a truck, we'll go in there at night and steal one of the trucks, and we can get toilet paper. How have you been with this? Obviously, Tucson Ghost the Tucson Ghost Company tours have been shut down. And,
yeah, sadly.
Yeah, which is unfortunate. But again, things are opening up, and as soon as the buildings that you get to go into are open to go into again, you'll be up and running, and which is amazing. I love that you're introducing the public to this type of understanding. The woo-woo, the paranormal, and having them have an introduction to it. Now, you and your husband, Will, you started this group. Why did you do it, and when did you start?
We actually started with the company in 2013. Never actually imagined being a business owner, to be honest with you. At the time, I was actually in college taking zoology. And I just got approached with this opportunity, and I thought about it for a couple days and said, why not? And kind of went from there. We just ended up buying the rights to the company from another person that lived in Bisbee at the time. And we took it over and we expanded on it and made it our own ever since then. I always had an interest in the paranormal. I actually grew up in a haunted house back in Toledo, Ohio.
Oh, nice. And it's funny you said, the person you took over it from was from Bisbee. I've been to Bisbee. That's like another Disneyland for the dead. Yeah. I was in that restaurant, the hotel of the restaurant the restaurant of the hotel that's really haunted, the old one down there. And it was a lot of fun. Bisbee's a great place. So how long did the person run it before you guys took it over?
I think she only had it for a couple years. She had started with her Bisbee tours, and then she had expanded to Tombstone and Tucson, and it ended up being too much to try to keep employees and keep them going. So she ended up giving up both of them. And I had actually went on one of her ghost hunts, and that's how I met her. And I bought one of her books, and I read about the Tucson Ghost Tour, and I was like, wait, I never heard about a Tucson Ghost Tour. Why haven't I heard about this? Because I would have been one of the people taking it. And I contacted her, and I asked her, I said, why haven't I heard of this tour? And she explained to me how, she had it for only about 2 years, and her employee that she trusted with it to run it basically moved, so she had to let it go. And she made a little side remark about, so if you know of anyone that would want to work for me, and right away I'm like, hello, I would love to do something like that. I love talking to people. I love, the whole paranormal. So I was like, I would love to do this.
What kind of drew you to go on a paranormal investigation to start with? Yes, you grew up in a haunted house, but when you were growing up in that haunted house, did you actually see and hear things?
No, actually, what was really funny is in that house, it was over 100 years old. So the house I lived in was actually built in the 1890s. And I would get creeped out, and I wouldn't go into certain areas. And I would hear because I had a weird living situation when I was a kid. I actually lived with my grandma, my grandpa, my mom, and my aunt. And I would hear my grandma talk about ghosts, and I would hear my aunt mention, about weird things that would happen in her room. But when I would mention that I was creeped out, they would be like, oh, you're just a kid. It's just your imagination. And so I never really had any major experiences in that house. But what had happened was later on, it was really funny. My next door neighbors that I had bought the house, and they moved in. So we knew who took over our house. And I had gotten in touch with them again years later through Facebook. And I just started talking to her, and she made the comment about the house being haunted. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Because I didn't want to say anything. And she goes, yeah, when we lived there, there would be things thrown around. We would see things. So it really kicked up when we moved out and they moved in. So they're the ones that actually saw things in the house. I just felt that something was there.
Now, I got one of woo questions for you. When they moved in, did they have boys in the family?
Yes.
Yeah, and you were all girls.
Basically, it was only my grandfather, but he had passed away when I was 12. He was in his 50s.
Yeah, it's actually a common thing. You'll either it'll be one or the other. You'll get the boys, all the boys in there will stir things up, or it'll be all the girls will stir things up.
All right. And yeah, it was the opposite for us. Because there was only 2 girls that moved in, and there was, I think, 3 or 4 boys. I know there's a couple sons and the father. So yeah, it was more boys outweighed the girls when they moved in.
Yeah, and that's kind of what tips the energy balance in there. Do you have Irish background?
Yes, actually I do. My maiden name is McKitty.
And that would be the same as your grandmother and your aunt who had seen things in there?
No, actually, that's my father's side. I was raised with my mother's side, and that side is English.
English, okay. Because I know that people who are sensitive, Caucasian people who are sensitive, we have a lot of our background is Welsh, Irish, Scottish, Scandinavian with a dip into Germany, and then the inside of the boot of Italy, coast of France, Spain, and Portugal. And the England part of it is just a cluster of the bastardization of all those other ones. But the Irish seems to be a very intuitive chunk. It's, if you went back a few hundred years, that's our Aboriginal background. That's us living with the land and seeing elemental beings and the sprites of the forests and the fairies and the pagan kind of thing. That's us being Aboriginal as Caucasians. And if you had that Irish mix with an American Indian mix, you'd be glowing in the dark, and you probably would have been seeing things a lot when you were a kid.
Well, actually, we do have Indian in our family, too. I think there was a great-great-grandparent was, I want to say, and I don't have the research. My cousin has the one research, but I think she was like a full-blooded Cherokee or something. So...
Yeah, that's interesting because the intuitive side or the higher vibration, or what we'd call the empath side of the family, that would be your background, your ability to connect to the other side. Do you, this is kind of an odd, but do you consider yourself an empath or somebody who has a higher vibration?
It's funny because I've always felt like I was more sensitive, and it really depends. Sometimes I will get these feelings that are out of the blue and I don't know where they come from. Sometimes I will pick up on other people's emotions. But I've been told many, many times that I shut my abilities off. Yeah,
you do.
I've been told that so much in my life.
Do you know that you're dreaming while you're dreaming?
Yes.
Okay, that's a gimme. That's 24 to 26% of the population. That is a lucid dream. That is a dictionary definition of a lucid dream. Lucid dreams aren't always flying and unicorns farting rainbows out of their butt. That is just knowing you're dreaming when you're dreaming. And that is... like, there hasn't been really a study of like, what the percentages of empaths. There was an old study that in 2014, somebody gave me a stat saying 68% of the population of empaths are female. Well, then you would have to then know how many people were an empath, and then it's a weird stat. But over time, we looked at it and it was like, oh, hold on, empaths and lucid dreamers, only people who are higher vibration lucid dream, and there are studies all around the world on what the percentage is, and it's 24 to 26%. You also would wake up between 3 and 4:30 in the morning. You may have seen shadows as a kid. High anxiety. All your friends dump their problems on you, like, you're your best listener, you give the best hugs, here's all my crap, and they'd walk away. And that was your anxiety as a kid. Attract narcissists. That's, the lower vibration people come out of the wood for us. That waking up at between 3 and 4:30 in the morning is strictly dead people you bring home, because the veil thins between that time. So they come forward. So all day long you're going, Becky, hey, Becky, and then you fall asleep, and 3 to 4:30 comes along and it's like, Becky, and you wake up and I have to pee.
Yep.
Well, when you were a little kid, what you may have actually seen the shadows, and if you were a little bit nervous, you put the covers over your head and tell them to leave you alone, and there are rules, and they'll leave you alone. Except for kids, they'll come through that. So yeah, you are basically, if you know you're dreaming when you're dreaming, you lucid dream. Yeah, you're an empath. So you are a higher vibration, and you're blocking your ability is actually really good as a paranormal investigator.
Yeah, it's really funny that you bring that up, because my team that we formed, and I formed the team shortly after the business, but the team, I have always said, we're going to go off of pure evidence. We're not going to go off of feelings. We're not going to go off of, anything like that. It has to be pure evidence. But it's funny because a lot of the activity always revolves around me. It always has. And so they've learned to set up everything around me.
You're a ghost magnet. Yeah.
Yeah. Anything that's going to happen is going to happen to me on an investigation. Everyone pretty much knows that on my team.
Yeah, I worked with a guy on a paranormal team. He's a jerk. But if you wanted to get something on photographed, they all showed up in front of his camera. It was amazing.
I haven't been that lucky.
Yeah, it's like, okay, we could get audio, we can do this, but this guy would just keep randomly clicking away on a camera, and we'd have residual energy. A guy pushing a little hand truck out of an office that is now a completely different part of a building, and pushing a little hand truck out around the corner right at him through the camera. And he was just randomly clicking away. We looked at it and said, well, that's crazy. It's not a ghost, but it's the residual energy going through. And then he had pictures of women standing at doorways and halfway between a wall. And it's like, dude, how do you do this? He goes, I don't know. He was from England, and he was a ghost magnet. They just always wanted to perform in front of his camera, but we could have 5 cameras facing the same place, and it was all on his. It was crazy. Tucson, I love Tucson. I have been, there's a place, was it kind of the old Tucson area, by the Dusty Monk Pub, La Cocina restaurant. There's a little open air area in there. I was down sitting at the bar at La Cocina restaurant, talking to a lady working there, and there was a dead lady walking through. And I haven't seen full body apparitions. I've seen a few of them in my life, and this woman was like a half body apparition. She was a shadow, but when I looked at the shadow, there wasn't anyone causing the shadow, and the shadow had features. And
you could have been seeing Rosa.
Yeah, she was definitely dark. She was darker. Her hair was up, and she was wearing, I couldn't see anything from the legs down, so it was just like a torso. Obviously there was something there, but I was focused on the face part. So everything was peripheral from there, and her hair was up. But she was, very just calmly walking through. And I looked at her, and I looked at the lady behind the bar, who was also very much a glow-in-the-dark kind of person. And I looked back, and I said, do you see that lady? And she said, no, did you see a lady? I said, okay, maybe I didn't. Why? I'll have 3 more drinks. So that I found was a really interesting, the energy in that area was very interesting. Is that something that you guys run into? Do you have store owners calling you up saying, hey, I think we have a ghost here?
Well, it's really funny that you bring up La Cocina, because La Cocina is actually what we consider to be our home base, so to say. Oh. We start our tours at La Cocina, and the ghost experience we do at La Cocina. We basically have keys to the place, and we basically go in there and do all of our training and everything there. It's funny because that is right across the street from the Presidio Museum and some of the first places that the settlers of Tucson lived in.
Oh, that is very cool.
Yes.
The lady that I was talking to for the longest time, who was very high vibration there, I just remember her as being a slim young woman with a lot of tattoos. And she was tending the bar. And this would be about 4 years ago, I guess. But she would feel things too.
Yeah, a lot of people there have said that they've had experiences.
Yeah, fascinating place.
Yeah.
So you guys start your tours there, and this is and for anybody who hasn't been to Tucson, Arizona, it's a great little location. It is kind of in an older area. It's outside of everything else, and I just, if you want to take a bite of Southwest culture, that's kind of a good place to start. Plus, there's some funky little, I was going to call them pawn shops, but they're not. They're just like knick-knack stores. And
there's an antique shop there. There's a record shop there. There's what they call the Art House Central, which is basically all local artists display their stuff there to sell.
Yeah.
So and there's a tattoo parlor there now too.
Yes. And actually, a friend of mine lives in Tucson, John D'Souza, who is an ex-FBI guy who.
Yes, I know who he is. I've worked with him before. Okay,
so John and I actually did an outdoor interview on the patio of the Dusty Monk Pub. We filmed our interview there. It was kind of cool. It's a lovely place. Take me through a ghost tour of Tucson. What do you start at La Casina, and where do you go?
We start with La Cristina, and La Cristina, I think, takes up the first 10 to 15 minutes. I mean, there's just so many stories there at La Crisina. From La Cristina, we actually moved to the old courthouse, which was the original courthouse in Tucson. It's under renovations now. It was used as the courthouse up until, I want to say, 2 years ago. Now they're remodeling it, and they have a Welcome Arizona museum type thing going in there. Film Tucson's going in there, and some other places are going in there. I'm hoping once they're done with those renovations that we can go in there and investigate, because I've heard a lot of stories come from that courthouse, and the stories I heard actually came from a judge. So a pretty reliable source. After the courthouse, we go to the old Pioneer building. There's a lot of history and tragedy at the Pioneer. I'm thinking because we just rerouted our tour in October, and then of course we shut it down a couple months ago. From Pioneer, we go to Fox Theater. I've had the privilege of working with Fox Theater before. I love them over there. Then from Fox, we start to head towards Hotel Congress, and there's a couple little stops in between that we talk about. Hotel Congress is a main one because that hotel was one of the first hotels downtown that serviced people coming in and off of the train, because Tucson was the major train, stop for, people in Tombstone and things like that. They would come through Tucson. We have history here in Tucson with Wyatt Earp at the train station. So the train station is one of our stops too. And we end up ending the tour at Borderlands Brewery downtown off of Toole Avenue. That's the old warehouse district. And a lot of the things there were built on top of basically a cemetery that was so bad that bodies were exposed in that area even.
That's kind of lovely, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, downtown Tucson has a bad history of building on our old cemeteries, so...
I see that's even as a policeman, I look at that and go, you know what? I'd rather not just patrol that area. It's and it's kind of funny because there's only dead people in cemeteries. It's not like a lot of times it's not their spirit that it's hanging out, because if, for goodness sakes, I'm going to die, I'm not crossing over. I'm not going to hang out in the cemetery.
All right.
I am going to go to the Fox Theater. I'm going to go to the Hotel Congress and I hang out in the bar. It's one of those things that people don't understand. It's like why schools are very haunted. Theaters and schools. It's really positive energy, and there's lots going on there. So I'm going to go hang out there. No, I'm not going to hang out in the cemetery. But I find, if you've done this where you are in a cemetery and it seems to be really quiet until you read the name on the tombstone?
What I've had happen to me actually is I will be drawn to a certain grave. And I don't know why. I had that happen actually in Tombstone. And we did the old cemetery, not the Boot Hill thing, but we did the old cemetery. And we were walking around, and what was really weird is we kept hearing this weird noise, and it was my husband and I. So Will and I were walking the cemetery. It was freezing cold. I'm having my recorder going, so I didn't get a whole lot because I'm literally shivering and my teeth are literally chattering, but we heard this weird noise, and we followed it. And it wasn't a bug. It wasn't anything like that. We couldn't describe what it was. It was the weirdest noise that we had heard. And both Will and I were hearing it, and we're going, where the hell is this coming from? So we're following it, and once we get to a certain grave, it completely stops. And we were like, okay, that was weird. We looked around trying to find whatever it was. Nothing was in that area making noise. We couldn't find a bird, bugs, nothing. And it just stopped once we reached a certain, grave. And I thought, that is the weirdest thing. And then we kept walking around. And before we left, as we were exiting, I was like, we have to go to the left. And we went to the left. And we approached this one grave. And I stopped. And I saw that, unfortunately, people are rude and mean and disrespectful. And there were people that went to this grave, and they had basically trashed it. And they, threw flowers all over. They did this. It was trashed. And so I started picking it up, and I put the flowers back in the vase, and I was doing, cleaning up the grave site. And it was really weird because as soon as I had done that, the flowers, tilted. They moved a different direction. And I looked at, my husband, and I'm like, okay, did you see that? And he goes, yeah. And we're trying to recreate it and trying to get it to do it again, exactly what it did. And it wouldn't redo it.
Interesting.
So we were like, okay, maybe that was them thanking us for fixing their gravesite. We don't know. But it was really interesting because the way it tilted wasn't something normal. And we couldn't recreate it. Yeah. I
know from my experience, if you go to a graveyard and there's, you have nothing there and you've got recorders and things running, if you just reading it to yourself, the name on the gravestone or saying it out loud, things will start picking up. It's almost like they come in saying, who are you? I was on the other side of the world playing golf, and you're standing here and you said my name. I just have to come over here and find out what's going on. And my psychic friend says, yeah, they're not even quote unquote ghosts. They are dead people who are off doing their thing. They've crossed over, and all of a sudden they show up going, oh, do I know you? Who are you? What are you doing at my grave? Oh, okay, fine. And then off they go again. But that's interesting. You heard the noise, because I've heard that before too, that there some will lead, especially a higher vibration person who has really good energy around them. They'll kind of be with you, and they're causing that noise, and they'll take you to who they are and say, okay, this is me, and I want to, thank you for letting me hang out with you.
Well, maybe that's what it was. I just know that it was something that we could not figure out where the noise was coming from. And we followed it to a certain grave, and then it stopped. And I thought that was the weirdest thing ever.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And for those of you following along at home, if you go to the website, TucsonGhostTour.com, that's TucsonGhostTour.com, and check out Becky's website, you can see all the different things that she and her team put on, along with paranormal investigations themselves. Now, when you said you were at this, it wasn't Boot Hill. See, there's two Boot Hills in Tombstone. One is the one where you pay, you donate money to get in. Is that the?
That's the one that I was saying that I was not at. I wasn't at the tourist attraction one. I was at the one at the end of Allen Street.
So the one, so it's to the southwest from there. It's on the hill. Actually, it's across the road. Yeah, I know. Yeah. I know what you mean. Yeah, see, the Boot Hill tourist attraction one, it actually has, not everybody in there is like the traditional bad guy. Right. There's all sorts of different people buried there. There's sheriff and a few other ones, or marshal or whoever. But yeah, I've had, I did a short video of me in there, and I had psychics calling up from the other side of the friggin' continent going, you should see the people standing behind you when you were talking. It's like, there's nobody there. But it's kind of funny when you get one psychic from Idaho calling up, and another one from California, and another one from England saying, there was this, and they all described the same person standing behind me. And it's kind of cool. And I don't see them, so it's kind of disappointing.
Yeah.
So Becky, you on your tour now, you've taken me through the tour, the courthouse, obviously, those are very, very interesting places. And we have a museum and a courthouse not too far from where I am, going back about 100 and so years, really still active. And it's not what you think. There are those who, back in the day, they executed people at that courthouse. But it's not just them, it's the judges and some of the staff that are still there.
Right.
Yeah, and those are the ones that are really interesting to interact with. And then you talk about the Fox Theater. That is anything to do with the theater is active, and I just love the energy around there. Do you have specific entities that you come into contact with or you hear about at these locations?
Well, at La Cocina, we have who we call Rosa. Well, they actually named her. We didn't name her. And she's the one that I'm thinking you may have interacted with, or saw, I should say. She's an older lady. People usually see her like in a shadow form. Sometimes they'll actually see her. And when they do see her, they say that she's usually in like a black shawl, like old-fashioned clothing type thing. She seems to be, I guess, the mother figure. Whenever I've had my kids there, either she will come out or the little girl there will come out and interact with us the most. They also have a spirit there that they named Frank, and they said that they believe him to be old military. They haven't told me why they believe that, but that's what they've told me. Those are the only two that we really have names for. I know there's a couple cowboys there, and one of the cowboys in particular, he will interact with me when he thinks I'm being picked on or if I'm in danger in any way. He's like the protector.
Good.
And he smells like cigars. So people will come around me and be like, you smell like cigars. And I'm like, that would be the cowboy. He's near me. So for whatever reason, he feels that I'm either being picked on or I'm in danger, and he's staying near me. And people have smelled that around me when I've been at La Cocina. They're like, you smell like cigars. And I'm like, I don't even smoke. So it's not me. So, there's certain ones that I do come in contact over and over again.
When you, let's say, bounce over to the Fox Theater again, do employees of the Fox Theater tell you that, they felt something here, or they've seen something there, or it's rumored being that somebody hung themselves in the corner? And is there something that the employees there kind of point you into a certain direction?
Yes. When we investigated the Fox Theater, one of the main claims that they always said is that they saw a girl. They couldn't really determine her age. Some people said, she was a little girl. Others said, maybe like teenager. But everyone, described a girl. They would always see a girl. And then they would always see people like in the audience. Like when they would lock up and go home at night, they would see people like sitting in the seats. So that would be the things that they described the most. Now, and also someone going into the projection room. They would always see people in the projection room. So those were the hot spots. Now, what was really funny is we actually caught someone going into the projection room. We caught a shadow. And we caught the girl walking at the end of the hallway where they said that they always see her. It's funny because I'm not a technical person. Really, I'm not. You give me technology and I'll mess it up. I cannot deal with it. I don't know how to do these things, like edit videos and stuff. Whenever I put up YouTube videos, they're raw and unedited because I can't do it. But that's good because I can't fake evidence. But
no, you can't. Yeah.
But at Fox Theater, I didn't unfortunately catch the shadow going into the projection room. That was just something I saw. The cameras didn't catch it. But the cameras did catch the girl walking. but it was so fast and such a blur that I had to slow it down to catch it. And, at one point in time, you actually see the figure. Now, when I went to play it for them at Fox Theater and I'm showing them this, I'm like putting it on pause every second so they can see it, because I had no clue how to edit it to slow it down for them. So I handed over that evidence for them, and they were supposed to try to figure it out, how to slow it down and get it to be shown. But I don't know if they ever did anything with it or not. But I can't deal with stuff like that. I am the worst when it comes to trying to edit video and trying to get to right where something happens. I'm the one fast forwarding. Wait, I went past it. I'm the worst at that stuff. But when I showed them, the video and I, explained to them what I saw, they were like, we knew it. We knew there had to be something here.
Well, that's really cool. And it's validating for those who've been seeing these things out of the corner of their eye for the longest time, or hear stories of it and think, oh, come on, I never see stuff like that.
Yeah.
What is also interesting that you actually have film of these things, and I've always told people this, is that there is a paranormal television show that's been on for over 10 years now, and I don't think they've got a picture of a ghost yet. But our paranormal teams could get them every weekend. It was bizarre. It's like, how can you not get a picture of a ghost? And did you run into the situation? First of all, let's go through that. What kind of equipment do you use for taking pictures?
We just use regular cameras, nothing in particular. We used to have a team member that had like professional cameras and all that stuff. He left the team, unfortunately. So we just basically have our phones and regular freaking, cameras. We were using a digital. I think someone went out and bought one of the old-fashioned film ones where you actually have to put film in a camera. Ooh.
Outrageous. That's archaic.
But, we've heard that those old-fashioned things that, it's sad to call it old-fashioned since that's what we grew up on, but they actually capture things better, from our understanding.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
See, the hard part with those, Becky, and this is my paranormal team background, is that we would take pictures in threes.
Yes.
And if you're taking them with something that you have to go click and then advance the film and go click again and advance the film, it's not that quick. So then you can say, well, it's in the first picture, halfway disappeared in the second picture, and completely gone in the third picture. But if you're going to, depending how fast you can take the picture,
right.
It's unless you've got the auto winder and all that stuff, see hooked up.
Yeah, we're not going that old fashioned where you have to wait for the little bulb to light up and
Oh no,
not that old fashioned, but yeah.
Somebody got one of those little flash cubes to put on top of the camera, which is probably way even older. That's in my day, not in your day, when the Kodaks came with a cube on top that had 4 flashes on it, and you'd click it and it would go. Anyway, it's interesting. We use digital cameras. We'll have them modified into full spectrum, and then we'll light up a room with just full spectrum light, and so we can catch various spectrums of light if we're taking the pictures. And then we do the regular cameras too. And a lot of times I will use my iPhone and get a picture of something. I have a floating woman's head at a theater.
Oh,
wow. all our fancy gear was set up on the stage. I took a picture with my iPhone and I said, what is that? And it was this woman's head floating up onto the stage, which was kind of freaky.
Yeah.
But again, the other cameras didn't pick it up. It was just my iPhone picked it up, and it was spot on. You can't say it's not a woman's head floating. And no, I didn't monkey with my iPhone camera because, again, I have no idea how to do that either. It is fascinating. Your recording equipment, what type of stuff do you use for recording?
For EVPs, each of us have different types of recorders. I actually have one of the Zoom ones, so I have one of the more advanced ones. And then we have, just a regular DVR system. I think we bought it at freaking Best Buy or something like that. We do have one thermal. Those things are expensive.
Oh, yeah.
And we do have one of the Connects, so you can see the stick figures. We do not have a portable one, though. We have one of the old-fashioned ones where we have to hook it up to the laptop.
But still, A buddy of mine had one of the ones where you just kind of, it looks like an iPad thing, and you hold it up and it does a stick figure thing. And it was a lot of fun, but he doesn't use it anymore. He says, all it shows is a stick figure, and we're still not really sure if it's just making this stuff up. So unless you've got another camera verifying something.
Yeah, that's the thing. My husband, he at first he didn't go with us to investigations. And I'm not saying that I was quick to call things a ghost or anything, but it was me and a couple of girls, and we weren't the most, like I said, we're technically challenged, all of us pretty much. So we didn't understand a lot of things, when it came to, what would make this kind of noise and what would cause this and what would cause that type thing. We wouldn't call it paranormal, but we would be like, okay, we don't know what that is. And then my husband, started coming along, and he started being like, okay, it's doing that because of this. So he basically has been able to debunk a lot of things that the equipment does.
Yeah.
Because he's like, okay, that's being set off because of that. Like I already knew this one, but I knew that the REM pod would be set off by walkie-talkies. So he would take it like one step further, like, well, the REM pod's also being set off from, this vibration of this and blah, 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 things that I would be like, what? Speak English?
Well, and for my listener, what is a REM pod?
The REM pod is the small little device. It's round, and it has like 4 lights on it and the antenna. And whenever the EMF field around it changes, it lights up and it makes the noise. And my husband actually bought me one. I think it was for a Valentine's Day gift, and I was so excited. I was like, oh my gosh, I got this REM pod. Yeah, some girls want flowers and chocolates. I want those kind of equipment. So I got this, and I took it for a test drive to an investigation. And we went to this old bar that was closed down, and we heard, I think it was knocking sounds, and there's a lot of homeless people in that area, so we had 2 team members go outside and make sure that no one was by that door knocking. And when they went outside, they had walkies, and we had walkies inside, and they radioed in saying that there was nobody in sight. And when they radioed in, the REM pod went off. Now, this was my first time using the REM pod. It was my first time ever having it. I got so ecstatic. I think I jumped like a mile in the air going, oh my God, my REM pod went off. I was so excited. And then for the rest of the night, we kept trying to get the REM pod to go off again and again and again. And I'm like, okay, we got to try to figure out what made it go off, because why would it only go off that one time? So we tested it, and they went back outside. And as soon as I hit that walkie, it went off. And I was like, I got so mad. I was like, we debunked it. So, we've, been able to figure out simple things like that. But my husband, Will, he's, basically a mechanic. He's worked construction. He's done everything. He's my go-to person. I don't think there's anything this guy can't do. I mean, he's fixed my car. He fixes the house. He knows these things. And so when it comes to all these electronic things we use, he knows what they're meant to be for, because a lot of these things aren't meant for ghost hunting. They just figured out, oh, this works for ghost hunting. So he knows what they're actually supposed to do, so he knows what else they actually pick up on.
Well, and that's what a lot of people don't understand. There's a thing that we use, it's called an EMF detector, and it's for detecting electromagnetic fields.
Right.
If you've got a really good one, if you decide, I'm going to get an EMF detector and I'm going to spend $1,000 on one, well, you are going to pick up EMF. You are going to pick up the wires behind the wall. You are going to pick up everything. So that's why if everyone's watching a TV show with paranormal people, they have the cheap made in China ones that basically you've got to strap it to a cable to get that thing to go off. And you don't want a really delicate one that a professional uses in a house or in a contracting situation. You want one that barely works. So when you're standing in the middle of a room and nothing is on, and all of a sudden those lights start going up and your goosebumps have all gone crazy, you know there's something a little bit different in the atmosphere than was there earlier.
Right.
And so, all these things are made for a specific function outside of paranormal investigating. We've just adapted them. And
Yes.
The EMF detector is the big one. It's like, do not go spend a lot of money on them. And unfortunately, the $30 ones are now $90 because everyone's
so
buying
many
them.
people are into it now.
So stop that. Complain about buying the $90 ones. Get the cheapo. Those still great cheap ones. Do you ever use those as a communication device?
Yes, we have. We try to do all kinds of different techniques. So we've tried to see what works, what doesn't work. We've tried, using the K2, asking them to light up, certain colors if they're there. We've done the twist flashlights. We've done everything you can think of. And the bottom line always comes down to if they want to do it.
Of course, yeah.
That's the bottom line. If they don't want to play along, they're just going to do whatever they want to do. At La Cocina, when I was doing a ghost experience one time, we were doing the twist flashlights. And I'm not sure if it was...
Explain a bit, what do you mean by that?
Okay, the twist flashlights are where you put down... It's usually one or two twist flashlights, and you just barely turn them off. So you twist them to where it's very easy to turn them on. And we set them down, and we always test it because we hit the surface to make sure that, if something hits the surface, we're not turning it on ourselves or anything like that. But it's easy enough for the spirits to twist them on and off. And the idea is they're supposed to twist it on for yes, or one for yes, one for no, however you want to go about doing it. And we've had it work in the past to where, we've asked, are you, a certain age, and we'll name age groups and I'll turn on at, the certain age group, male, female. We've had it work. We have. And it's really interesting, though, because one night at La Cocina, and I'm not sure if it was a kid doing this or if someone was just, because there's supposed to be pranksters there, too. But they didn't want to answer any questions. They just wanted to play. And they wanted to do it when someone was looking directly into the flashlight. They would not twist it on or, anything until someone was looking directly at it. And then they would twist it on so you'd, get this bright light in your eyes. If you would walk away, no one would be looking at it. Nothing would happen. But the minute someone was looking at it, they would twist it on. It was like, haha, I blinded you.
That is funny. We are talking to Becky Gydesen of the Tucson Ghost Tour, also Tucson Ghost Co. and the Tucson Ghost Society. And those are a couple of email addresses. Tucson Ghost Society at Outlook.com if you want to know anything a little more about what she's up to and her team is up to. You can also get a hold of them at Tucson Ghost Co. at Hotmail.com. And again, the website, TucsonGhostTour.com, will give you a good breakdown and idea of what they do. Yeah, twisting those flashlights, that was always fascinating to me. And any time that you're actually doing that back and forth communication with them, and it is fun. It is fun. But when you are called out there with, let's say, there is the tour side of things, and you're taking the people out for their first, maybe second, maybe even third experience communicating with ghosts. Now, you and I have these conversations because we both believe in ghosts. Right. So that was like a gimme. I can tell you there are ghosts. I've brought them home with me. I had one standing at the foot of my bed, like I'm looking at a real person. I saw ghosts when I was a 16-year-old kid, full on body apparitions. I have been on paranormal investigations where I've seen things that I can describe as an extra large beach towel, black, crawling across a wall and moving across from me. I believe in it because I've actually seen it, and I've been with people who have said, hey, look at the picture I just took, and there's a lady standing there. Okay. And I've also had the back and forth conversations with them through a digital recorder in my headphones, like I'm talking to a person.
All right.
So, full disclosure, if you've tuned into this episode to think I don't believe in ghosts, we've kind of left you behind at this point, because we've been there, we've done it, we've seen them. Now, what we'd like to do is show other people. So in your case, and we'll come back to that, the reason that you're out there too is, but you and your team are open to, if somebody phones up and says, hey, Becky, there's a lady in a blue dress at the top of my stairs who fades away. Could you drop by to see if it's a ghost? Well, first of all, yeah, sounds like a ghost. I'll give you another example. There's this rattling noise upstairs. I'm not really sure. It's a new house. Are there squirrels in the attic, or is your complainant actually have squirrels in their attic? You get called out to those places. You don't charge for that, do you?
No, we do not.
Excellent. You are now my best friend, because no one should be paying for a bunch of strangers to come in with varying bits of equipment to traipse around your house looking for a ghost. Because gosh darn it, there have been people who have showed up saying, oh yeah, it is a ghost, and we've fixed it for now, but for $500 a month, we'll make sure it doesn't come back.
Exactly.
There's a sucker born every minute. Yeah, they cleared the ghost up upstairs. They actually removed the raccoon from the attic. So now you don't hear anything, but you think it's them. No, legitimately, he shouldn't be paying for these things. When you actually get a client calling you up and saying something, take me through a basic investigation on who's showing up and what do you do?
Well, first of all, usually we will get the phone call or the email, and we actually do have a client form that we send out that we ask them to fill out. This way we get more information on them, on the house, what they're experiencing, and we can kind of do our research. Some teams, they don't really look into things. They are just like, okay, we'll be there. End of story, and they go do whatever. We realized that a lot of what happens either has to deal with the history of the location, or possibly the people themselves, or something that maybe they have recently bought. So we have questions like that we ask. Have you inherited, anyone's antiques? Have you bought anything used, that you feel, has an attachment? Do you, live on a property that, has been passed down for generations? Do you know anything about the property? Some people do, some people don't. So we try to research it. But we do the research. We try not to go too deeply into it right away, but we definitely, and I know this sounds bad, but it is something that everyone should be doing. We look into the people first. We make sure that they are not wanted for murder.
And you say that like it's a bad thing, but our rules were, first of all, you never meet the client alone.
Right.
You never go to the residence alone. And from me being a policeman, we used to do this when we did search warrants on people's houses. The first person goes through videotaping everything in the house. Then we do the search. Then we videotape it again. So when someone comes and says, hey, you guys took my 73-inch color TV, it's not here. It's like, dude, it wasn't a TV. Look at the video.
Right.
Pay attention to the house, because unless you're really well insured and it's a third-party insurance that it's a limited company, you're liable for things. We leaned against your great-grandmother's cabinet and a leg broke. Actually, no, we didn't. In fact, you didn't have a cabinet like that in the house, because we've taken pictures of your living room. So there are a lot of things, and people are crazy. And I don't mean, and bless them, it doesn't mean a crazy person will not have a ghost in their house.
Right. And it's funny that you touched on all that, because that is things that we do.
Good girl.
Yeah. Safety comes first. Basically, besides my husband, we've always been a female team. I mean, we've had a guy here and there, but we've always been a female team. And, we have to be safe. and we have to, pay attention. And we do have insurance. We're one of the few teams that do. And the reason why we have insurance is because we have the company as the umbrella. But we do have insurance, but we still make them sign a contract before we investigate. There is a contract that we sign.
Good.
So we literally treat this as a business, even though we don't charge.
Yeah, you have to. It's CYA, cover your ass.
Yep.
And it's actually protecting the client too. And like they get it, this is the contract. This is your copy. This is what we did. We're not making a promise. Yeah, if there's a ghost in your house when we leave, there's still a ghost in your house. We may suggest ways of dealing with it, but we're not here to fix everything. We're here to satisfy you that what you're thinking is here isn't just your own paranoia.
Right.
But that said, I have been to people who are paranoid schizophrenics houses, and and this is one of the things too. And I'm going to throw this out for you guys. I don't know if you run into this, but you'll get to the client, and you'll say, "Well, do you have any history? What's going on?" "Oh, I've written everything down." And they'll come out with paperwork, and they've written it like in the edges of the newspaper and the edges of the book. Every scrap of paper has handwriting on it. They've recorded everything, and they show it to you. A paranoid schizophrenic, the worst thing you can do is say, "Hey, can we take this and go maybe photocopy it?" They'll look at you and think, some of them may look at you and think, "Oh, that's all the evidence I have, and that person's going to take it. That must be one of them." And there was a policeman in Ontario, went to a fellow was complaining about something in his house, not a ghost most likely, or something around his neighbors. And the policeman said, "Oh, that's really interesting." And it was a whole bunch of documents that this guy had handwritten. And he said, "Could I take that back to the office and photocopy it?" And this guy was paranoid. And he said, "Oh," and it was in the policeman's hands. And as the policeman turned around, he killed him.
Oh my goodness.
Because he thought the policeman was one of the spies.
Yeah.
And then he called the police again. So
oh my God.
It's like, okay, so those are things you don't want to take away from a client. You look at it and the first thing you do is think, okay, mental health issue. Right. Bless them that he has a mental health issue, but it's not a house that you want to be in.
All right.
And again, could be haunted. Nothing's to say it can't be haunted, but it's not a client you're going to take on.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's
first.
Something that I think some people that are getting into this field for the wrong reasons don't realize. And if you're in this for actually the research and for the right reasons, you're going to realize you can't help everyone and you can't take on every case. That's the bottom line.
Which kind of gets me to the next question, Becky, is why would you take on a client?
We have taken on many. I've lost count on how many cases we've done. At first, we did it because we wanted answers, and we wanted to go in there and see what we could catch. Not only help them, but we wanted to find it. As time went on, it was more of the fact that, we need to help these people. We need to help them. And there's been times that my husband has had to tell me, you know what, you're not going to be able to help them. And I made the mistake one time. I took a case and he told me, he goes, "You're not going to be able to help her. It's a mental issue. You're not going to be able to help her." But I felt so bad for her. She cried on my shoulder, and I felt, how upset she was, and I couldn't tell her no. And we took this case, and what didn't help was she was already paranoid. I mean, she wasn't as bad as you described earlier, but she was already paranoid, and her apartment that she lived in cornered the elevator of the building. So her workspace was right near that elevator, sending off those huge high EMFs. And she's already a paranoid person, and she's working around these high EMF fields. Her paranoia went through the roof because of all this. We didn't find anything paranormal at all in her place. It was just basically her paranoia that was doing it, and the fact that she's around these high EMFs. And it got to the point to where she was asking my husband to go with her to her storage unit because she was afraid she was being spied on by, her ex and things like that. And we finally had to cut ties with her and tell her, look, you need to go to the cops if that's what you believe it is. We can't help you any further. So we have dealt with things like that. So we try to be a little bit more picky on things. But we try to pick the people that we do feel really need our help, who are really desperate. And we're actually reevaluating this weekend because of all this going on. We have to rethink how we're going to go about things. But we kind of have a criteria, if they have children, if, this, that, and we kind of go by these things to where we feel if they should be at the top of the list, if it's something we don't feel we can help them. And we go from there. But it's definitely, to help them and to try to calm them down and to try to get them to understand the situation at hand.
If your team comes to my house and they say, you said you saw, again, defaulting to the lady in the blue dress. You come there, you've got a picture of the lady in the blue dress, you have a conversation with her, you tell me, this is the stuff, and this was the hardest part for me on the paranormal team I was on. They would get all this evidence and not tell the client.
Oh, no.
I know, it was really bad, which is one of the main reasons I left, because I thought they were just insane. They wouldn't even tell the client. If the client happened to be there the night we were there, they wouldn't even show them the pictures on the camera, and they'd whisper. And it was like a big... But what I think they were doing is they were... okay, we're going to come back next week and we're going to bring more people. We're going to maybe get another paranormal team in here. We're going to get some more pictures and we're going to keep going. And you're going to milk this thing for as much as... Well, it's a freaking person's private house.
Right, exactly.
Morons. Anyway, calming down again. But, you get the evidence. What do you do? What can you do to help the person with the dead person that's in their house?
Okay, well, I'm going to touch base on what you said about, the clients there. We do not ask our clients to leave, but if something does happen when they are there, we try not to allow them to panic, and we try to tell them it could be this or that, and we tell them, we're not going to call it paranormal until we can review it further. So we try to keep them calm until we can review things further. Then we, we try to do it as fast as possible. We tell them within 2 weeks. Sometimes we can do it faster. And we review all the evidence, what we come back with. Sometimes it's, nothing. Sometimes it's something. And we approach them with this evidence. We show them, we let them listen. And then we ask them, how would you want to proceed? Some of them are fine with what we found. Some of them are like, we don't want this. So we ask them how they want to proceed. If they want it gone, we try to do a simple cleansing, but we tell them, it's not necessarily going to work. We give them suggestions of what they can do. And for the most part, we tell them lay down the law, because a lot of times that's what works best, them laying down the law. Mm-hmm. And we give the clients the control of, where do you go from here? What do you want done from here? And we go from there. If they want another investigation, we go back. If they, are... and it depends on the client. We've had, one client where we went into her house 2 or 3 times before she was comfortable with the situation. We had, one client that, they wanted one spirit gone, but they didn't care if the other one stayed. It varies so much that we can't assume, we can't, be like, okay, this is what we're going to do because this is, what we feel is best. That's not our decision. That's the client's decision.
Do you ever use a psychic with you?
No.
Why?
Because of the fact that we've ran into situations that they will go in, and I'm going to be quite honest with you, I don't believe a lot of psychics are truly psychic. I do believe that there are ones that are true and real. I have, talked to a few, that they've hit things right on for me, and I was going, I don't know how you knew that. But then I've talked to others that they were fishing for things, and through their fishing is, how they came up with things. And the ones that I have dealt with, I base my team on being more scientific. I like to be scientific. And so I tell anyone that claims to be psychic, I'm like, okay, we want to go off of evidence, not off of feelings. So I need you to do me that favor, and you can tell us, hey, look, I think something's over here, and then we'll take our equipment and we'll go do that. But I want the scientific basis of it. I don't want to go freaking out my client saying that you saw something, but we have no evidence that, it was there.
Oh, okay. Because I will not do a paranormal investigation now without a psychic.
Yes,
but I have specific psychics. But the other thing is, too, is if I have a huge building, I'm not going to spend 4 hours doing an investigation in a building when I can have somebody say, last room, far corner of the building, only place. And then we'll do it. And they make notes. They actually do handwritten notes of what they deal with. And then we go back separately, do all the evidence, all the recordings, all the photography, and then we match the notes up.
Yeah. See, that's where I come in handy. I'm not a psychic. I don't claim to be a psychic, but I can tell where the activity is.
Yeah, but you don't think that's being psychic. That's kind of funny.
No, I don't. I've seen things. I've felt things. I don't consider myself a psychic.
You don't want to use the word psychic. How about intuitive? It's not your intuition.
I guess. I don't even like to call myself an empath. I don't like to call myself any of that stuff. I will say that I'm sensitive to the paranormal. That's about all I will say.
Yeah, that's another term for psychics, sensitives.
I don't like to go off of those feelings, and it's really funny because I'm the one that always gets followed home. I'm always the one that ends up scratched, marked, followed, having things, played with. I mean, I've literally have had my hair played with. I've been scratched more times than I can count. I've had marks on me. I've literally had like zippers on like pouches rise up from something opening up my pouches. I've had everything happen to me. I've seen things at the foot of my bed. I've had things wake me up in the middle of the night, and I look and something's there, and I look again and it's gone. But yeah,
But you're not empathic, no. Yeah, it's kind of cute. And I don't mean that, I really mean that not as a condescending. I don't mean that condescending. It's like, you're the type of person I just kind of look at if I'm having a beer with, and going to go like shaking my head while watching like their hair raise up on each side of them as something is playing with their hair. And I'm going, really? And you don't believe you are doing this, right? It's walking like a duck and it's sounding like a duck right now, but you're just not ready. It's okay.
Yeah, and that's why people say that I'm the one that blocks it.
Yeah. And, there's reasons that you're protected, and there's reasons that part of you is blocked. A lot of, and on my show, I talk to, this is a psychic heavy podcast. Intuitives and people who cross dead people over, and people who do readings and prophecies and all sorts of things, and astrology. But there's always a thing too, is that you can be intuitive. You can be genetically predisposed as being a higher vibration person, but it's just that you're not ready.
Right.
It's not your time to have that extra switch flipped on. And I friends of mine work for the government, work for the FBI. One worked for the CIA. They do remote viewing. They do. They have dead people showing up in their house and saying, "Hey, could you help me tell my mother where my body is?" And then they end up working with the police and backtracking and finding the body. That's what they do. They're paid. That's their gig, and some of this doesn't come till later in life. Mine, I've been doing it all my life. I just didn't know what it was. And it was in 2012. It was pointed out to me. and these things I saw were ghosts. I kind of wrote them off as something in my head. Well, I had a psychic actually tell me which of those things were real and were ghosts without me ever telling them any of the details on them, going back to when I was a kid. They just said, oh, by the way, that thing you saw when you were 16 after the car accident, yeah, that was a ghost. It's like, holy crap, how did you know I had a car accident when I was 16 and I saw a ghost?
Right.
So that kind of thing. But it was my time for that switch to hit. Your time's coming. It's just not now.
Yeah. I've always, my whole life, I've been one of those weird people.
Oh, no.
I call it weird. But even as a kid, I was very aware of, the possibility of things and things being out there. Number one, when I was a kid, I always thought it would be really cool to have an alien as a friend. I don't know why I thought that, but I just thought it would be really cool. And people would be like, why? And I'm like, because it would be cool. And I do think I saw a UFO when I was a kid. It's so blurry in my, back of my head that I can't tell you, but I could swear that I saw something when I was a kid.
Becky, you want to see a UFO? You were in a place that UFOs are all over the place.
Yeah, I know.
It's like, go outside, look for a satellite. This, like that one satellite moving. Go, okay, that's a satellite. But keep looking. You'll see them traveling in groups. Satellites don't travel in groups.
Right.
And that's Arizona. I go to Sedona and I take Melinda Leslie's UFO tour and I go out there and I watch groups of them, 4, 5, 6 of them flying around. It's insane. Dr. Lynn Kitai is a friend of mine who did the documentary The Phoenix Lights from like 23 years ago, the parade that went from the Prescott Valley basically right down the main highway and off into New Mexico. It's witnessed by 10% of the population. You are in UFO City.
Yeah. Well, what was funny though is it was when I lived in Toledo that I saw it.
Well, yeah, we get it like Pacific Northwest, Ontario, the New York State, Virginia. They're all over the place. It's just that where you're living now is like UFO central.
Yeah, I just remember, and like I said, it's fuzzy. I don't remember everything. I just remember being a kid, looking up in the sky, seeing this round thing, and then the next thing I know, I was inside. That's all I remember. Inside
your house?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Had me going there for a second. Next thing you know, I was inside. Inside the craft?
No, I wish. See, I would have thought that would have been cool, but no. I mean, it's fuzzy. I don't remember a lot. But
well, that's cool.
Yeah. I always thought as a kid, it would have been cool if, I ended up with an alien friend from that. I was weird like that. And I remember one thing in particular that when I don't even know how old I was. I know I was in elementary school and I was in Girl Scouts. And we had this weird badge thing that we were learning, and I think it had to do with our ancestry. I don't know what it dealt with, but I remember we had to go to a cemetery and we had to look up names because we were going to be researching these names or something. I just remember going to the cemetery, and I remember some of the girls would sit down on those tombstone benches. You know what I'm talking about? They're actual tombstones, but they're in the shape of a bench.
Yeah.
And I remember the girls would sit on those benches and they would start writing down all these names. And I approached 2 of them and I told them, and I don't know why I did this. It was so out of the blue. And I remember the weirdest look I got from them. But I told them, I said, if you are sitting there, you need to at least say hi to them and be respectful to them. And they gave me this weirdest look, like, what the hell are you talking about? They're dead. But I was like, you need to be respectful to them. You have to at least say hi to them because you are sitting, at their grave. So my whole life, I've always been like that, respectful, to the unknown, and always thought that it was, fascinating and how cool it would be. So I've been like that since I was a little girl. I remember looking back and, just getting the weirdest reactions because of stuff like that.
But it's cool. It's a different way of seeing what's around you, and it's also respectful to the unknown. especially in a cemetery when you're walking around, and it's like, give a little respect. There's the remains of human beings under your feet right now.
Yeah. Oh, I'm like one of those people that I try not to step on graves, and if I do, I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. I've always done that. That's how I am. I've always been that way.
I remember going in a graveyard one night, and as an adult, as a policeman, because there were some kids horsing around through the cemetery, and I stubbed my toe on like the flat tombstone that's kind of set into the ground. Mm-hmm. I stubbed my toe on it, and I said, "Oh, I'm sorry." It's like, and there's nobody around, and I kind of looked around and went, "Okay, that was odd." But I was apologizing. I said, "Oh, sorry about that. Just go back to sleep. I'm just moving through." Yeah. It was like I was going through my kids' room and I banged their bed by mistake. Oh, sorry, it's okay. Go back to sleep. Yeah. It's fascinating. We are talking to Becky Gydesen. She is one of the owners, she and her husband Will, of Tucson Ghost Company. Go to the website, please, tucsonghosttour.com, and check out all the cool stuff that they're up to. And yes, because of the apocalypse, everything's been shut down for a bit. So depending on when you're listening to this, because it is in the podcast ether out there right now, this, of course, was being recorded in May 2020. And if you're off into the future and you found this recording somewhere under a rock, it's back in the day we used to have a thing called a podcast, and that's what it is. We're talking about it's very, very interesting. I love Tucson. I love El Chero restaurant, the homie, the chimichanga. Mm-hmm. You've got great old stuff, and anytime you've got old stuff, you've got me, and anytime you've got that much quartz and silver in the ground, you're going to have all sorts of cool activity. And I find that from Bisbee to Tombstone, just a solar loading of that energy from the sun, it seems like dead people can kind of tap into that and get your attention in more ways than one. Like you say, pitching your butt, pulling your hair, unzipping your fanny pack kind of thing. It's It is something that's very, very unique to that energy. Well, you have there's a river running through there, correct? There's I can't remember.
Water in Tucson?
Water. No, there isn't a river?
We have the Santa Cruz, but as far as it ever having water in it, during the monsoon, but that's about it.
During the monsoon, that was November 1983. Because that's one of the things that we find here in the Pacific Northwest anyway. If you're around anywhere of tidal movement of water or running river, we find energies such as the dead can kind of tap into that and become a little bit stronger enough to be able to see them. Or beside a railway track.
Yes. We've noticed that one. Yeah. One of the locations we've investigated, literally the railroad is right behind the building.
Oh, okay.
It's annoying, but it kicks up the energy.
Yeah, and that's where I was having this conversation. I think my very first week as a paranormal investigator, having a conversation with a disembodied woman across the table from me. There was a train going by every 40 minutes. So you could hear it coming on your, like with the headphones on. Yeah. You knew it was coming half an hour before it got there. Kind of, okay, the train's coming. But once it went by, you're fine. But that energy, plus it was a river, a very large, fast-moving river. So all that energy they could tap into. And I found in places like Bisbee and Tombstone, it's primarily Tombstone, of course, there's no water there, but it's on top of a flippin' silver mine. Right. Many silver mines, lots of quartz in the ground, and easier to see. And I don't know what your opinion is on the dead people, but there are dead people all over the place. It's just that some are a little more easy to interact with. Right. And it's based on, my understanding anyway, or my belief is it's based on the energy they can pull in to make themselves available to you. Have you gone through the thing where your batteries all die? Oh, yeah. Yeah, and that's one of them, too.
Yeah, or that my equipment, I've had the opposite, where we've had something off and it'll turn on.
Yeah, and to me, those are attention getters. Mm-hmm. Like, hey, I'm here. I had I was doing a residential one, and downstairs in the basement where the teenage boy was staying, it was very active. They'd seen things, they heard coughing, they heard knocks and bumps and everything. And while we were down there, the his Nintendo game was beeping and burping and doing all that stuff, but it wasn't plugged in.
No, yeah. That's always an interesting thing.
Yeah, so we're looking at it going, oh, well, did anyone step on that, or did anyone turn it on? And one of the guys says, it's not even plugged into the wall. And we're looking at the lights going on it, and I'm thinking, okay, that's a clue. That's right up there with opening and closing cupboard doors. But it's draining the batteries, to me, was always like, okay, I need some energy because I need to get your attention. And they're draining the batteries and still not getting your attention. But that, turning things on, turning things off, the flashlight too, the twisted flashlights, EMF detector with the lights going back and forth. Sometimes they want to. I did a documentary where literally I did old school. I hung a piece of string, and I said, if there's anybody here, move the string. And it was an extremely active place in the bar, in a pub. Like an Army and Navy, is a Legion thing for Army veterans and things. And it's very active. It's very haunted. So I'm hanging this string, and we had my Zoom, and we had a couple of other recorders going. And I said, if there's anybody here, can you touch the string? The string didn't move. But on the recorders, we heard a guy very clearly say, don't touch the string. So it was like he was like the dominant guy behind the bar going, don't play with these idiots. Kind of like what you were saying with like, all of a sudden nothing happens. Yeah. At El Casino, it was just like, we got one guy coming in saying, don't humor these people anymore until they look in the flashlight and turn it on. Yeah. But, playful little stinkers. Try the string thing one day. It's actually kind of cool. Once you understand that the air conditioning is not going to kick in and make it go sideways on you. But it's very, very interesting because it'll start spinning around like a it'll start spinning like it's going down a whirlpool kind of thing. It's fascinating. Just literally a piece of string hanging from a point. But it's a lot of fun. I enjoy it, but I also do it because I want to make sure that they're crossing. And again, falling back to the psychic a lot of times will cross them. And unfortunately, that brings a lot of dead people to the location because every dead person in the neighborhood shows up. All right. Because they think, okay, we're going to get to go home. And then you've got to make sure that they all get home. So we open the door to that and get them going. But we also do that remotely, so that's not a big deal. But it is interesting. I like what you do. It sounds like it's a lot of fun, and I want to do that next time in Tucson. And again, I was supposed to be there. When was I supposed to be there? Last weekend. Drat. I had to cancel my trip from Vancouver, British Columbia down to Tucson and then off to Tombstone. But I love, like I said, I love your restaurants because I'm kind of addicted to that, and I love being in that energy. And just the Southwest is just a wonderful place to be. How long have you been there from Toledo?
Well, actually, I'm going to give away my age here, but I've been in Tucson basically since 1987. My first 14 years was spent in Toledo. So basically born and raised in Toledo and came out here in my high school years. I did move back to Toledo for a little bit here and there. I also lived in the Tennessee, Kentucky area for a little while.
Oh, cool.
But funny enough, when I went back to Toledo and I moved into an apartment, I ended up in a haunted apartment. So everywhere I lived in Toledo ended up being haunted.
I wonder why.
And the one in the apartment, I think, got angry at me because I wouldn't acknowledge anything. I really think it got angry because I was with my ex, and my ex is completely like, I don't believe in this stuff. It doesn't exist, blah, 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 blah. And I kept telling him, this apartment is haunted. And he kept saying, it's your imagination. It's your imagination. You're crazy. And so I ignored it. And I would not like certain areas of the apartment. And I'm a claustrophobic person. I don't like small rooms. I like open rooms. And the most comfortable I felt was in the third bedroom that we had as like an office TV room. And it was the smallest room in the entire apartment. And that would be where I spent all my time when I was home alone with my young, she was my only daughter at the time. She's my oldest now, but she was about 2 or 3 at the time. And that was the room we would stay in, the smallest room. And I hated going to the bathroom at night. I had to keep the shower curtain closed, and I was afraid if I opened it, what I would see. I hated that bathroom. I would go to the bathroom as quick as I could in the middle of the night because I hated the feeling in that bathroom.
Did you do any history of the building, whether or not someone had passed in the bathroom or...
No, I never did any of the history.
Which, after I said that out loud, I thought, yeah, that would be stupid to do. Like, I'm going to tape, this bathroom creeps me out. Let's find out if someone died in here, because that would make me feel much better. It's like, no, we're moving the bathroom into the kitchen now.
Well, now, I'm curious since I don't live there anymore, but at the time I didn't want to know. And
of course, yeah.
What was really funny is that ended up being my first major paranormal experience, was living in that apartment, because I was home with my, like I said, she was maybe 3 at the time. She's like 20 now. But we were just her and I heard this loud, like crashing, like this loud knocking sound. And I was like, okay, what was that? And I had a cat. So I'm thinking, okay, the cat knocked something over and broke something. Great. So the apartment kind of went in like a circle in some ways. So I started off in the kitchen and I'm looking for like a broken glass or something on the floor so I can clean it up. Nothing. So I go back to my like bedroom. Nothing. Look into my daughter's room. Nothing. When I come back into the living room, and the third bedroom was on the other side of the living room, I saw broken glass on the ground and I'm like, okay, what broke? And I look up and I saw my picture. But here's the weird thing. The picture was literally flipped. I could see the little thing that you hang, those little rough edges, you know what I'm talking about? The little hanging hook.
Yeah, that little rippled saw blade looking thing.
Yeah, I could see that looking at me, but yet the picture was still on the wall. But the glass was broke and the picture was on the floor, but I could see the hanging hook facing me. So it literally flipped and broke.
Weird stuff, Becky.
And I picked up the glass, but I left everything else, because I had a, kid. I didn't want my kid getting cut. But I picked up the glass. I left everything else the way it was. And my ex came home that night and I said, come here, follow me. Took him into the living room. He saw the picture on the floor. He saw the frame. And I said, explain that. He's all, well, why did you flip it? I'm like, I didn't touch it. And he goes, oh, the wind must have done it. And I'm like, the wind? Seriously? The wind?
Very windy living room.
Yeah. I'm like, the wind flipped a picture frame. You got to be kidding me. We ended up moving out shortly afterwards. But that was my first major experience that made me go, okay, how? What? Why? I couldn't wrap my head around it. I didn't understand it. And a couple, few years later is, here I am with my, current husband, and we're flipping through channels watching Ghost Hunters. And I'm like, oh, people talk about this. I can talk about this. And I kind of shyly asked, Will if he believed in ghosts. And he said that he had an experience when he was a kid. So I was like, I can talk about my experience now. I can talk about all these weird things I've had my whole life. And I started doing that then.
Well, good. This is the time. In about 15 years ago, things started changing.
Yeah.
And if you in the woo-woo community, if you talk about people awakening and things, a lot of the paranormal television shows added to that because people knew that they could talk about it out loud without being placed into a white jacket with one sleeve that ties in the back.
Exactly.
Yeah, and more people are coming out saying, "Oh, my grandmother now is a little more easily. We can talk to her about those things that went bump in the night, and so and so used to see this, or those shadows I used to see as a kid, or whatever." And it's a common conversation, and that expanded into I've gone to Bigfoot conferences in Kennewick, Washington, where I'm sitting at a table with these seniors who flock to these conferences because it's the only place they can talk about the 9-foot tall hairy thing that was picking fruit in the backyard that grandma saw, because her whole family doesn't believe her. But
right.
Everybody at the conference does, because they all saw the same thing growing up. So it's like a bunch of kids getting together saying, "Oh, you saw that too? Okay, good. We can all talk about it." But now it's not just at the conferences. They can talk about it over Christmas dinner and things like that. And it's not just like, "Oh, here goes Granny again on the hairy thing." And Granny can now say, "Well, I was talking to Dr. So-and-so and Meldrum, who also confirms that this could be." And it's like, okay, Granny, this is getting kind of cool now.
Yeah.
Because now we can go and look it up on TV too. But the ghost thing kind of really opened up a door to spiritualism. Mm-hmm. And the belief into something else out there. Becky, what do you think happens to us after we die?
I think we become energy. I do believe that, I'm one of these people that I don't believe in a set religion. I don't. I do believe that there's a greater good. I choose to call him God, but religion kind of drives me crazy, to be honest with you. It's really hard for me to accept that God would get angry at people and punish people. So I really don't like to think that there's a hell. And if there is a hell, it's only for extremely bad people. But I do believe we do have the choice to move on to, a heaven, or if we choose to come back and stay here, we can, but we definitely turn into energy, and that we can make ourselves known. It's not over when we die. It's by far not over. There's still more to be discovered. Hopefully all of our answers get answered, and hopefully we learn all those questions that we've been wanting to know forever. But yeah, I definitely feel that there is something there, and something that guides us. I do believe that.
My last tattoo that I got in Sturgis, South Dakota, at the motorcycle rally, is no, K-N-O-W, no end. Mm-hmm. And it's just because there is no end. Now, I don't believe we turn into energy. I believe we are energy.
Well,
and then when our meat sack shuts down, we just continue on.
Right.
And off we go. Yeah, the religion thing is very, very interesting. And because, when I cross over, there's a few reasons why people don't cross. And one of them is, a very common one, is they have a religious belief that, they coveted their neighbor's wife or something, and they broke a 10 commandment, therefore I'm going to go to hell. I thought we were just going to be all worm food, and now I realize there's a light, and my great-grandmother's coming through, and I'm thinking, oh, crap, I can't go. So I'm just going to stay here. And one of the things we do, because they think they have a religious reason to stay, we say, if you want to go that route, well, if Jesus died for your sins, why would you still be punished?
Right.
And all they had to do was take that hesitation, like, what? And then usually, and 100% of the time, somebody comes through and says, yeah, no, they're telling the truth, you can go. And it's usually, one guy was died in prison in the 1940s. His cellmate came through. Another one, it's their ex-husband or a friend of theirs come through and go, no, let's go. They're telling the truth. Off you go. But it's fascinating dealing with talking to dead people. Yeah. And figuring out why exactly they've kind of hung back. I remember this lady by the train that would go by every few minutes, my first lady I was talking to, I said, why are you still here? And she very clearly said, I can't let go. Mm-hmm. And she worked in the building that was a sheet metal manufacturing place in the 1940s, but it was now a restaurant. And people would go into the ladies' room and look in the mirror, and she'd be standing behind them with the kind of cat's eyes 50s glasses and really fire engine red lipstick, and they'd feel very calm. And when they left the restroom, that's when the whole crap came through. There was a ghost in the bathroom. But when they saw her, they were very calm.
Right.
very, very calm. It was like a little kind of grandmothery kind of vibe, I guess. But she, even though she was younger than the grandmothery kind of vibe, but she was not scary. But the fear happened when they were walking from back to their table, and by the time they hit the table, it was like, let's get the hell out of here. It's there's a ghost in the bathroom, and I don't know what to do now. But that lady, she just couldn't leave the business alone, and then historically, she was married to the guy who had the business. So we identified her, but she could not leave that business. That was her life, and he died in a plane crash in the 60s or something, and she just stayed at work. It's fascinating why they're still there. And that's the other thing that I find really cool is why haven't you moved on?
I dealt with one that I think basically because he committed suicide, he felt that he wouldn't be welcomed.
Yeah.
And he wanted a prayer to be said for him. And that's what we ended up doing. And so far, no one has seen or heard from him since we said that prayer. That was an interesting one, actually. That was one of my cases that really, truly affected me personally. I can't name the restaurant because, they don't want it to be known, but there was a restaurant here in Tucson. They called us in because they said, the employees, they've had so many, things happen. Some of them were starting to freak out. They would see, people sitting at the table playing cards when they would open up. They would see shadows. They would get this, that, they had story after story. And this was one of the few times that we caught evidence that blows my mind, visual evidence. And we were sitting down playing cards, and you actually, and I have this up on my YouTube, you actually see a shadow come up behind me, and it's almost as if they're looking at my cards, and then it disappears down this hallway. And what's really interesting is we spent probably 3 hours trying to debunk that, watching everyone get up, where their shadow went, everything, where every team member was. And finally we said, you know what, this can't be a human because there is a wall down that hallway. You would see the human, and the shadow went down the hallway. You would see the human. There's no way. So we finally said, okay, this is paranormal. We can't deny this any longer. And that shadow, we figured out, his name was Carl. And Carl had ties to the restaurant because his family used to own it, and then his family fired him. And after his family fired him from the restaurant, he felt he couldn't go on living anymore and committed suicide. Now, he didn't commit suicide at the restaurant, but he was so tied into the restaurant that that's where he ended up going back to. You have to imagine how depressed and distraught this guy was to commit suicide over this. About 2-3 weeks after we did this investigation, I started feeling really, really depressed, really distraught. I really couldn't live my life. I was just so not myself. And so I ended up, talking to my team member, May, and I said, I can't figure this out. I was fine. All of a sudden, this came over me. We started talking about it, and we're like, okay, what about the restaurant? What happened there? We know that this shadow was behind me. We know this shadow connected with me. What was this guy's name? And we went into, the research even further and everything, and I was like, okay, this has to be Carl. Because I was starting to have paranormal things happen at my house too. And so I ended up doing an EVP session, and I had one of those little apps that would spit out the words and stuff. And so I was doing the EVP session and one of those apps, and I was like, I was literally in tears. You can literally hear me crying in this recording. And I said, I need to know, Carl, if you are here, if this is the person that's here in the house with me. And I got a very clear yes in the EVP, as clear as can be, that, this was Carl. And I was like, Carl, what do you need me to do? And it popped up, pray. So I said, okay, I'll say a prayer for you. And I said a prayer for him. It was really weird. Then everything stopped. I mean, the depression went away, the The stress went away. The air felt lighter. Everything felt differently. And that case really had affected me. And I think that was one of the first times that I literally felt like I did for sure help, Carl move on. And I knew, the name and everything. So that hit really close to me. That was one of my most intense.
You understand why you felt depressed, right?
It was because of Carl.
You felt his depression.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're that word you don't want to say you are. So, yeah, you brought that home, and the reason he came home with you because he knew you could help.
Right.
And it's just getting your switch turned on to point you in that direction that got him there. We talked about people going to the light. The light is always there. It just disappears.
Right.
If that makes sense. They don't see it. But all they have to do is shut their ghostly eyes, take a deep breath and focus. And every friggin' relative they've ever had in millennia shows up saying, yeah, it's okay, come on.
Right.
But it's getting them over that hump. And if they get kind of caught up in their they get caught up within the last moments of their life, and that just spins in them, and they have to get out of that. They get out of their head. And you were just you were the lightning rod that needed to be flicked on. Now, we were talking about your YouTube channel. It's Tucson Ghost Company, and I just subscribed. So there I am.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, so if you guys listen to YouTube, definitely. And in fact, I will send you a copy of this podcast, and you can put it up on YouTube too.
If I can figure it out.
Oh, yeah.
You'll all be notice okay. On my YouTube that I think I have maybe one, maybe two edited videos, and that was when we had an old team member that could do that for us. Everything else is just raw and unedited because I don't know how to do that. I used to do a podcast too called Mysteries Explained, and that's up on our YouTube. I personally did not do that. When we were part of the network on Spreaker would automatically do that for us. I didn't know how to do that.
And there's only one of them up there. How many episodes did you do?
We used to do Mysteries Explained I did it for 3 or 4 years. We switched networks a couple times before we went to our very own network. First, we were on a local station out here, it's the most hilarious story. A lot of things, and I know everyone's like, see, this tells you this is what you're meant to do. A lot of things fall in my lap. I don't go looking for it. And the radio show was one of them. I just got an email one day going, hey, you want to host a radio show? And I'm like, what? What are you talking about? And they're like, oh, we're going to do a paranormal radio show. We think you'll be perfect for it. Do you want to do it? And I'm like, don't you want to interview me or anything first? They're like, no, just come in and do this show with us. And I'm like, okay. And I did it for like 2 times with this guy. And then he's like, okay, the show's yours. You're in charge of it. And I'm like, what? I've never done this before in my life.
Where's the on button?
Yeah, basically. It was so funny because when I started the podcast, I made a vow to myself. I said, I have to get one particular person on my show. I said, I will not rest until I get this person on my show. And I ended up getting them on my show. So I was so happy when I did. I got Grant Wilson, and he was the first person I ever watched on TV. So it was because of that show that I started talking about this and getting into it. And so I had told myself, I want him on my show. I will not rest until I get him. And I got him. So I was very proud that I accomplished that.
Good for you.
But yeah, I did it for about 4 years. It started at a local radio station, and then we went to a paranormal network, and then we went to our own network. So we switched a couple times. And I started off with my co-host as my one team member, Dave, and then he ended up quitting, and it was just me and Will that took it over. We put it on hold back in February before all this happened because I had put basically everything on hold, the team and the podcast, because I wanted to focus my attention on the actual company. because I had a company since 2013 and the company had been on the back burner. So I decided I need to focus on the company and do some things that I wanted to do with it and expand it. And I was getting there, and we were getting partnerships ready to go, and we were getting events ready to go. And then boom, all this happened.
The apocalypse.
Yep. So now I'm dealing with zombies instead of the paranormal.
Yeah, it was at the beginning of the apocalypse. It was quite easy to find them because they were all wearing masks. Now everyone's wearing a mask. You can't just tell who the zombies are. I wear a bandana. It's a camouflage bandana. I'm not welcome in banks. I don't know why, but it's kind of funny. Okay, Becky, you know what? I'm going to let you get off and do your life and get ready for opening your doors again for the Tucson Ghost Tours. And again, for the listener out there, go to the website TucsonGhostTour.com. Again, TucsonGhostTour.com, and check them out. And if you live in the Tucson area and you have what you think is a visitor hanging out, you think you might be a little haunted, give them a shout. You can get a hold of them at the Tucson Ghost Society at Outlook.com, Tucson Ghost Co. at Hotmail.com, or just go to the website TucsonGhostTour.com. You can find Becky and Will and the Tucson Ghost Tour or Tucson Ghost Company on Instagram. You can find them on Facebook, obviously YouTube, because I just subscribe. I almost said prescribed. I just prescribe to them there. Subscribe to them there, and take a look at what they do. Again, it's for private investigations. You're not going to see your stuff all over the interweb. Right. That's a private investigation, and Will and Becky, May and Raina, they do this for free, and they do this to not only help you, but in the long run, kind of help that trapped human energy that's not really supposed to be here.
Right.
They have other stuff that they're supposed to be doing. So I want to thank you for dropping by. I really appreciate this.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Watching you while you sleep all alone.
All right, that's it. Let's roll. And hey. Let's be careful out there.
Far over the snow